Well, that sure ain't looking promising right there.
Huge bolts of lightning hit just to the north of us.
Hope the old 3,500 ton truck makes it out of here.
So we pulled the plug on Madison County.
But there close to the shop, we only got 2/10 of an inch. So we're gonna move over there. Not really the way I wanted it to work out. Alright, we finally back putting seed in the ground again. It was kind of slow going this morning. We had to move everything from all the way up in Madison County back to here. Kelly was out of town last night at a New Kids on the Block concert. So I had to get Carter to help us move, and then Zach had to spray about 20 acres so we could go and get started. Kelly's now back over, she's home, she's back over on the sprayer spraying. Zach's a couple little fields ahead of me, and we got our planter set here pretty good. Anyway, what my goal is today is we've got 90 acres here in Crockett County that's dry enough to plant. Then we got to go back to Madison County. So my goal today is to get these 90 acres done, which shouldn't make for too long of a day. I mean, we really ought to be able to cover a lot more acres than that, but it's on two separate farms with a bunch of kind of small cut up fields. So really hard to be real efficient when we're over here on these farms. And then I'm hoping, you know, give it today, and then that ground back up in Madison County will be dry enough then that we can go back up there and get back to planting on that and get our cotton wrapped up. Problem that we got is Kelly was one farm ahead of me on spraying because she had to leave early yesterday to go to that concert, and then that rain came in earlier than was expected. We got about 100 acres that's been sprayed and hadn't been planted, and that paraquat works on the cover crop super fast, and as soon as the cover crop dies, well, it stops taking up moisture and it starts acting like a mulch to keep moisture in the ground. That ground that she sprayed is not going to dry up as fast. So I don't know, we'll just plant all this today, and then tomorrow we'll see what that ground up there looks like. Maybe we'll get lucky and that water will kind of infiltrate through, and we'll have some pretty good planting conditions.
Alright, Mac Massager 3000 has started. Being a 20-foot crimper, I'm running over double the ground as Matt and 5 times as much ground as Kelly is with that 100-foot sprayer. So I'm filling every rut that I've left with the sprayer, every armadillo hole that we missed this spring, every wash, all of it. But we're gonna get it done one way or the other. A 40-foot crimper would be nice, but 40-foot crimpers, once you unfold it, it's down. I can't pick it up, so when I'm laying out in rows, I can't pick it up and not lay down cover crop and be able to turn around and do what I need to do. So it balances out. I'd much rather be able to lift it up and not lay down cover crop and Matt have to fight with the rope. 7 acres in already. Got the in-rows laid out on the first field at his mom's house. Starting on my straight lines. Once we get these 2 little cookie cutter fields done, then we'll be into the meat of it. That's when we get into the good stuff. Cover crop looks awesome. It's gotta make 5,000 pounds an acre biomass. This stuff is thick. And glad that he cut back on the vetch this year, so it's not gonna wrap up near as bad on these road cleaners, but the clover looks good, the rye looks really good. You can see some of the radishes are trying to put back out from where they got winter killed. It's just, I mean, it's 4.5 foot tall. It's gonna lay down about the most picturesque weed suppression we've seen in the past couple years. It's been hit or miss. This has been some of the prettiest cover crop we've had, and thickest cover crop we've had in about 3 or 4 years. like so far. Laying out the carpet.
As you can tell, we got a whole lot thicker cover crop going on over here than what we had over there. For one thing, this just got a better stand for whatever reason, and we also had chicken litter applied on this farm, I don't know, a month and a half ago or so, so it had that extra nitrogen to kind of grow robust. And I'm telling you what, the stuff we did to the planter this winter, the clean sweep and the furrow force, it's paying off right here, because last year I would have had a tough time getting this cover crop parted, the seed in the ground, and the seed trench closed good. But I've done quite a bit of checking in our heaviest spots that I've planted, and it's planting like a dream. It's probably getting about 95% of the seeds in the ground and covered up real good. So that 2/10 of an inch of moisture gave the topsoil enough moisture to get this cotton germinated. So right now, there's really no reason we shouldn't get a good stand of cotton. Tell you what, that $20,000 we spent on planter upgrades this winter could potentially pay dividends, with cotton trading at about like $1.44 a pound right now. Tremendous. You know, making sure we get a good stand and off to a good start. Heck, we could we might be able to pay for these planter upgrades within the first, I don't know, 150 acres of cotton we picked this year potentially. That rain that came yesterday, plus a small chance of rain, I think tonight and tomorrow, is bringing a cold front through. But it's not really going to be that cold. I mean, we've had temperatures in the low to mid 90s all last week, and it's predicted to drop temperatures to about the mid 80s or so. So we're still going to have good cotton planting weather. Hopefully good enough that we can get done almost about the time that we got started last year, which could potentially give us a few more growing days in the season to fill out this cotton crop, and could lead to some pretty big cotton yields, I'm hoping. However, on the flip side, while that 90-degree weather last week was awesome for planting cotton, even though we weren't able to take advantage of it because the tractor broke down, it wasn't very good for the wheat. You know, wheat's kind of a cool season crop, and you get 90 plus degree temperatures during grain fill, it'll speed up the maturity of the wheat, and it won't put on as much weight, thus you won't yield as much. So even though we've got a fantastic looking wheat crop out there, just because of the temperatures that we're seeing here during grain fill, I don't think there's any chance that we'll come close to matching last year's record yield. I still think it'll be a good wheat crop, but it'll probably be more along the lines of kind of what we're used to. You know, probably somewhere in that 80 to 90 bushel an acre range. I just don't think we're going to see 100 bushels this year, even though we got the heads out there and probably got the kernels out there to make it. They're just not going to weigh quite as much. But also, you know, because speeding up maturity, there's a chance we might get the combine out a little earlier than we have the past few years, and maybe get our wheat out a little bit earlier. And then if that happens, then we'll get a double crop soybeans planted a little bit earlier, and they'll have more growing season. And you know, we might not make as much $10 wheat, but we might make a few extra, you know, $15, $16 beans. Oh, could be a good trade-off.
Well, unfortunately, there is a sad toll to having such good high biomass cover crop. And that is, you cannot always see the wildlife bedding down. And we kind of have a problem. This is the peak season for turkey hens roosting up, starting to lay eggs and hatch babies. The best place for them to do it most of the time is in really thick meadow grass or 5-foot tall cover crop. Kelly normally can make them out in the sprayer, and she'll let me know, and I'll kind of slow down. I can kind of spot them, but this one was a surprise. So unfortunately, we've had an impact, but the neighbor who actually raises guineas to sell, has an incubator. So I called him. He helped us out last year. I found a nest last year. So he's coming over now. He's gonna come get the eggs. The mama protected the eggs, so we're at least gonna save those. But it is what it is, unfortunately.
That's got it rolling once again. We're moving on along pretty good. Man, this is some thick cover crop this year over here on this farm. I know we got several other farms just as thick as this. But if there's any farms that need a thick cover crop on it, it's definitely this farm. It's one of our poorest farms, just being eroded for well over 100 years before we started, practicing soil health on it. I mean, we started no-tilling it, and I think last time we plowed it up was probably 2002. So, I mean, we've been no-tilling it for about 20 years, and then practicing, cover crops and manure. But, I mean, there's very little topsoil on a lot of places in this farm. When my dad actually bought this farm in the early 70s, he said there were some gullies so big on this farm that you could park a cotton picker in the bottom of the gully and you wouldn't be able to see the top of the basket. Now, cotton pickers back then weren't as big as what they are now, but still, that was some big gullies. And they had dozers come over here, terraced a lot of it and everything, but I mean, by that time, a lot of the topsoil was lost. We're trying to inject as much carbon into this soil, build that soil up just as quickly as we possibly can, and a good thick cover crop like this is one of the best ways to do that. And then also from a weed control perspective, this is one of the farms where I have my most problems with pigweeds on here, and we've put in a lot of work for the last 6 years cleaning it up, trying not to let a single one go to seed. But when you have a corn crop on here, I mean, it's impossible to scout every acre and make sure they're clean. So this and inevitably, if some come up, they can get by. So this thick cover crop of the rye, clover, and other stuff will do a really good job of suppressing a lot of those pigweeds. So hopefully I won't have to do as much manual labor removing pigweeds on this farm as what I've had to do in the past. If you're a farmer and you just started watching this recently, and you're curious about cover crops and maybe how you plant into what we're looking at, real thick biomass, because it's definitely not for the faint of heart. And there were a bunch of growing pains that I had to experience to kind of figure out how to make this system work. I had a few disasters the first few years, but for the most part, I think I finally got figured out about what works on our farm and our equipment. But if you're curious about, maybe implementing some of these practices on your farm, seeing what it's all about, seeing if it might be able to improve your farm, your bottom line, whatever, I highly encourage you to try it. Even if it's only an acre, a small piece of a field, whatever, I highly encourage you to try it, because I think there are some very real benefits that you could see. I know I've seen them on our farm that really helps to increase our profitability. I'd say over the course of the last 2-3 weeks, I've probably had at least 6 to 7 different people either call me or message me wanting to, what they need to do, how they need to plant into these cover crops, because they're finding out, well, especially when they're getting as mature as they are this time of year, well, it ain't as easy as what maybe you thought it was. A lot of the traditional planter attachments are not designed to work in this kind of biomass. You have problems with wrapping up or just not getting the job done. So if you're one of those guys, I've got a video that I made a couple years ago about how to plant into cover crops. A lot of the things that I learned about setting up your planter, the attachments you'll need, how you'll need to modify your planter in order to successfully be able to do it. If I can remember, I will post that link up here in the corner, and I highly recommend that you go check it out. It's a lot of things that I've learned, and not necessarily stuff that's going to cost a lot of money in modifying. There's some cheap ways to get started in it and modify your equipment to get it to work. Now, ultimately, I think the setup I've got now is the best out of all of them. Now, the setup I've got now, it definitely wasn't cheap, but as far as ease of use and getting the job done, I'm really high on it. But you know, the main goal of my channel that I have is education, you know, not just the general public about what we do in farming, whatever, but you know, any other farmers that are curious about changing the status quo on their farm, finding a better way to do it. But the problem is that things are so risky in farming right now, what we're seeing in input costs and everything, that if you try something and it doesn't work out, it could really affect your bottom line. So anything I can do to, you know, help someone else, you know, transition into something different and something better based upon what I've learned on our farm, you know, I'm super happy to help.
So this farm is always a good time because it's hidden back here, and the trees and the limbs really don't support a sprayer. So I'm hoping I don't run up on something. And it bottoms out down here, so I've only got 400 gallons in the tank. I'm hoping I don't sink. They were supposed to fix it, the landlord was, so we'll see. But as you can tell, just can't avoid the trees. Good times, good times.
All right, we finally got done with this farm. I'm glad of it. This is one of my least favorite farms to plant because it's so cut up, roads going everywhere, rough, small fields, everything else. So we're gonna head right on down the road here to the Ellington farm. We got about 30 acres over there and about 6 different fields. It's another cut up farm, but it's a little bit easier plant than what this one is. And we'll have our cotton here in Crockett County wrapped up. Maybe we'll get moved back up to Madison County this evening and see what the ground looks like. Depends on what time we get done over here.
We gotta fold up these small little patch fields. A joy fun. See these little fields we have to do. As I like to call, the fold up game is very strong on this farm. So, do I wish that the landlord would remove some trees? Absolutely. Are they going to? Probably not. So, grateful that we still can farm it. So, and it looks like there is a tree down back there, but probably too big for me to move. Alright, so I'm done, and I'm headed back to the shop to fill up the water truck, I guess, for tomorrow. And I'm gonna head back down this awesome road here to avoid all the trees, but you really can't avoid them without being in the side of the ditch over here. Oh! I'm sliding. Ay, 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 ay. Maybe I shouldn't hold this. Come on, let's go, Big Bertha, or as I like to call her, Shanae. It's kind of creepy back here. It's like Blair Witch Trials. It's weird. I'm gonna launch this sucker up. Look at this. I'm about to launch up there. That's all for me.
You get everything done over here?
I just finished up. I was about to holler at you and ask you what the game plan was.
Alright, I'll tell you what, holler at Kelly, and if she can pick you up, go ahead and carry your tractor over to Clanton. Probably go ahead and stop by the shop, fuel it up and grease it, and check that ground, see what it's like, and let me know. If it's dry enough, when I get done over here, I may run over there and just try to plant a little bit and get caught up to you, and then, you know, if it's good to go, then we'll start on it first thing in the morning and finish that up over there.
I thought you was up at the front field. I was going to have you look. It looks like the end cap on my right cylinder on this wing is trying to blow off, and I was going to show it to you.
Oh, we're running good now. I don't need no more problems. What the heck? Shut up. What the Sam Hill is going on? Expected the devices are missing. I don't know. All my freaking electronics just went haywire on the planter. If it screws in there, that's what it needs. All right, I just had everything on my monitor go haywire after we got moved over here to the second half of the farm after I unfolded the planter and everything, and got to looking, trying to diagnose, and all my lights are blinking everywhere on the planter except for row number 2 here. Don't have any blinking lights there, they're there, or on the smart farmer. Whereas that's what it's supposed to be doing. So this one entire unit is completely offline. And I don't know if it's a problem in the harness somewhere or if this SRM right here has gone bad, because that's kind of what controls everything on this unit. So because we're only using the rear units to plant cotton, and it's late on a Saturday afternoon, I'm going to see if I can rob one off the front and swap it here and see if that fixes it. If it doesn't come back online, then obviously I've got a problem in the wiring harness somewhere. All right, got the front one moved up here, and it's not lighting up either, so there's a problem in the wiring. Not sure what it could be. Looks like we got a fuse here. That's definitely the most likely place to check. We'll check that next. Yep, that sucker's blown. So I don't know if this is the root of the problem or a result of the problem. Put this new fuse in. Luckily this harness comes with spare fuses on it. Let's put the new fuse in and pray that this one don't pop, because if it does, then we got a short somewhere. Oh, sometimes I just long for the days when you just hooked up to a mechanical planter and took it to the field and you didn't have all these electronics. It's alive. All right, so go back and put the old SRM on there and see if it still works. All right, it's blinking, but it's blinking a code there. Not exactly sure what that code means, so I'm gonna go up there in the cab and reset all the modules and see if it recognizes what it's supposed to recognize. All right, everything is now back in the green on the monitor except for the V drive on this one because I got it unplugged. So I don't know why I took all this stuff apart before I checked the blasted fuse. Dummy, you always check the simple stuff first. I swear I learned that lesson all the time, but I can't seem to remember it. I always want to imagine the worst case scenario. So y'all please learn from my mistake. If something goes wrong, always check the simple stuff first. Check your fuses. Make sure everything's plugged in. Make sure it's got fuel in it. 42 years old, you think I would have learned by now, but no, I still make this stupid mistake all the time. So anyway, get all this button back up, get back to planting. All right, while I was working on that planter, I caught a whiff of something. One of life's great joys, blooming honeysuckle. Now, I talked in past videos why I like cotton so much. You know, it's been in my family as long as I've been alive, and you know, a lot of my fondest memories of a kid were out in the cotton field, where there's cotton planting, cotton harvest, whatever, and you know, that's a big reason why we still grow it. I mean, not only is it profitable, you know, it's in my blood. But I remember as a kid, you know, before I was too young to drive a tractor and plow the ground in front of the planter, you know, I'd be in charge of helping load the planter up with seed, getting chemicals sorted out, all that kind of stuff. And while my dad was out in the field planting, you know, I'd be parked up under a shade tree, you know, waiting on him to come fill up. And, you know, the one thing about cotton planting in Tennessee, it always coincides with honeysuckle blooming, and you know, just sitting under that shade tree, you know, I smell that honeysuckle. I mean, it's a beautiful, sweet smell. And, you know, I'd come over here and I'd come over to the honeysuckle bush and have me a sweet snack all the time. And I know I spoke with this on cotton planting last year, but, you know, inside this little honeysuckle bloom, a little bit of nectar. You pull the little string out and suck the nectar out. As delicious as it is, it just doesn't beat the smell of it. And you know, it only blooms for a week, 2 weeks during May when it finally warms up. So it won't be around long. But, you know, and then when I got a little older during planting season and I could drive the tractor, you know, I was on an open station tractor. We only had one cab tractor back then, so while I was plowing the fields, I'd also get a whiff of honeysuckle in too. For those of y'all that live in the city, you know, there's just some things about the countryside, you know, it's hard for me to explain, but a lot of stuff y'all missing out on. And yeah, I know all about the convenience of living in the city. You know, the store's only 2 minutes down the road versus 15 minutes down the road from me, but I think my pluses outweigh the negatives. Well, crap, did it again. As soon as I set the planter down, started to go, blew another fuse. So I put another fuse in there. Now, something on that unit is shorting it out. Don't know what. So put a new fuse in there, and now I'm gonna try to manually load my meters. That means I'm gonna get the electric drives to turn to try to load the meters and see if that blows it. If that blows it, well then the problem is in the electric motor on the meter, most likely. Alright, it didn't blow the fuse that time, so problem is somewhere else. Alright, we're back to playing. Unplugged each of the things back there one at a time and tried to plan a little bit and see what wouldn't blow the fuse, and apparently the smart firmer back there, something shorted out in it or whatever. It's not working, but we don't need that to plant, so I just unplugged it and we're gonna roll on. I mean, the only negative thing is I won't collect data from this field on that row as far as like organic matter, soil temperature, you know, all that good stuff. You know, pretty neat stuff to know, but definitely not crucial to getting this cotton crop planted, which is my chief priority right now. So we'll go ahead and plant what we can, and when we get rained out or get done planting cotton, I'll replace it then. Gotta love electronics. Oh, look at that sunset right there. Ain't it beautiful? Hopefully here in a few more days I'll be able to enjoy the sunset from my back porch. So ain't nothing else broke. We got that farm done. It's 8:30. Told Zach to take the tractor back over to Clanton where we got rained out yesterday, because that's going to be the next thing we plant. It's probably going to be the thing that dries up the quickest. Told him to check the ground. He said it's just a little tacky but pretty firm, so I'm going to go ahead and head over there and see if I can get some more of that planted tonight. Ryan Halls showed that there might be some rain come through overnight, and because how that cover crop's dead, it's got to the point it's not going to dry out really quick. So I'm gonna see if it's plantable tonight, and if it is, might just do something over there.